Hello, everyone. Welcome to Chasing a Murderer. And today we're going to actually go over the court hearing today where they are sentencing Doomsday Mother Lori Vallow. Today is July 31st of 2023, the moment that many of these families, victims have waited for to see the final justice take place for the deaths of two of her children, J.J. Vallow, Tylee Ryan. A beloved mother, daughter, sister, Tammy Daybell, was Chad Daybell's wife. And we heard several impact statements, which I'll go over in another video, that I felt had actually touched many people's hearts and helped them understand what many of these families were going through that lost loved ones that were attached to this case. But there was something that a lot of people weren't expecting, I think, and that was towards the end, right before sentencing, Lori Vallow decided that she would make a statement. And boy, did that statement just make things worse for her. So first, for those of you who have been waiting to find out what the sentencing was, well, we'll just do it in a quick manner for now. Let's just say the judge seen through Lori Vallow, and he seemed to agree with the world that this is one of the most hated, most evil women that walks this earth and will not see the light of day once she goes to prison. Of course, there's appeal processes and stuff that she can take that route if she wants to, but none of us believe she's going to get far with that. I think the most important thing was seeing justice actually happen, because it was scary. For a moment, you have that doubt that there is a small amount of chance that someone would believe Lori and that her manipulation skills might get the upper hand for her. And so when her attorneys actually, they admitted that they were struggling to represent Lori Vallow, that they had a few falling outs. And their approach to try to lessen this sentence for Lori Vallow was to speak love, hope, and peace, which, well, first of all, let's think about who needs that most, and that would be Tylee, JJ, and Tammy. And well, they're no longer here to even have that chance. So, again, guys, I wanted to share this first before we go forward. I wanted to congratulate the people attached to this case, because there are many people that have that were actually affected in this case in such a way that losses continue to happen, such as for the Douglas family, which is attached to Tammy Daybell. Tammy Daybell's mother just passed away. She had been fighting leukemia for 30 years, but according to the family members, this case, as you can imagine, affected her deeply. It's raining today, guys, sorry. To the point to where it was stressing her, which was wearing on her ability to fight this illness. Can you imagine sitting in the courtroom having to listen to Lori Vallow make a statement, and not only a statement, and I'm apologize beforehand, a statement of BS. I think the statement was basically a guilty verdict for her, saying, hey, I did it, but this is why. And I speak to my kids every day. I see my kids, and they love me, and they trust me. And I'm not a murderer, because other things happen in life, like overdoses, suicide, accidents. The same thing that she was feeding to Melenie Gibb, Selima, Alex Cox, and anyone else in her life. The one thing she said for me in a statement that I figured out even more is the fact that she was just sick of dealing with Tylee. She was sick of dealing with Tylee not feeling good. And she couldn't understand that the root cause to Tylee's illnesses was Lori Vallow. What did you guys think about today's sentencing? Was anything there that stuck out to you? Share it below. And like I said, we'll go over pieces of it in parts because I can't cover it all in one video. The first part of the statement, Lori starts off immediately quoting verses from the Bible.
I would like to start by quoting John from the New Testament in the Bible. In John chapter 8, verse 7, Jesus says, "He that is without sin among you, let him first cast a stone at her." Then in verse 15, Jesus says, "Ye judge after the flesh. I judge no man. And yet if I judge, my judgment is true." Jesus knows me. And Jesus understands me.
Immediately, she goes to the fact that, while following in her narcissistic path, that Jesus knows me. Me.
I mourn with all of you who mourn, my children and Tammy. Jesus Christ knows the truth of what happened here. Jesus Christ knows that no one was murdered in this case. Accidental deaths happen. Suicides happen. Fatal side effects from medications happen.
Nearly immediately, she diverts all responsibility of what happened in this case to something that was an accident, suicidal, an overdose. And here you can see the judge's face. It's almost impossible not to see that at that point he's awake and realizes this woman has balls to continue to try to manipulate everyone in this courtroom and divert the truth, in which she claims had nothing to do with murder. It had to do with the fact that maybe it was suicide. Maybe it was a medical issue. Perhaps an accident. There's no doubt in my mind the judge sees through this at this point. What scares me the most is to think that did she possibly convince one of these kids to take their life? She's insinuated that on a few phone calls through the jail. What about JJ? Well, according to forensics and the investigation overall, they believe that JJ's life was taken at the last moment. So, not good. And this wouldn't collaborate whatsoever with her claims that it could have been accidental or medication. And you would think that she finally is speaking, she's sharing her side of the story. This should actually close off a lot of the questions that we have. But really, it just opened more holes. So she shocks me because she used the courtroom as her own little preparing the people conference, her own little fireside, claiming that she had a near-death experience now while giving birth to her daughter, Tylee. Lori Vallow was using the courtroom to entertain herself, and she thought to entertain others, with the notion that she was a visionary. Now she could be compared to her heroes, Tammy Daybell, Julie Rowe, and many other people who have had near-death experiences. This said a lot for us. This told us that she had not snapped out of anything whatsoever. In fact, it's only worsened. And obviously, her contact with Tammy Daybell behind bars in some way is affecting Tammy's family as well. When she goes to prison, is this going to go over well? Are people going to actually allow her to befriend them? Will she get her way and have people follow her as this great visionary? Well, her attorneys seem to follow her just fine. Let's listen in again.
I have a different perspective in life because in 2002, when I was pregnant with Tylee, I died in the hospital while in labor with her. They tried to stop my labor. They put me on the table and they put something in my IV, and I felt my spirit falling to the floor. I was standing near my pregnant body, watching the doctors try to revive me, which took them a few minutes. In that time, my sister Stacy was standing to my left. I turned to hug her and was surprised that her spirit was as tangible as a physical body, because I knew I was in spirit and she was in spirit. She said she needed to show me some things, and we went to heaven. I later returned to my body. Because of this experience, I have access to heaven and the spirit world. Since then, I have had many communications from people now living in heaven. My friend Tammy Daybell, I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones.
A lot of people are wondering what that's about. You know, she's the reason that Chad and his family was destroyed. And it wasn't for anything of like light or good. What is she doing here? Well, what she's doing is her ego, her narcissistic ideas, her delusion believes that you guys love her no matter what. And she has the control of you and how you think. And if she was to speak, that she would be able to touch your heart and change your minds and convince you to believe as she does. The only thing that matters on this earth is Lori Vallow. And that was all that will matter when she thinks she reaches heaven and finds out that it's hell.
Now living in heaven, including my children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, my sisters, Stacy and Lolly, my aunts and my uncles, and my grandparents. I have had many communications with Jesus Christ, the Savior of this world, and our heavenly parents. I've had many angelic visitors have come and communicated with me and even manifested themselves to me. Because of these communications, I know for a fact that my children are happy and busy in the spirit world. Because of my communications with my friend Tammy Daybell.
Her friend Tammy Daybell, who she wanted off this earth more than anyone. Her friend that she was sleeping with her husband and destroying their family. How dumb does she think we are? How dumb do they think that the Chad Daybell children are? Those kids are going to wake up. And when they do, things are not going to be good for her or Chad.
I know that she is also very happy and extremely busy. I have always mourned the loss of my loved ones, and I have lost many in this mortal world. However, I know them more than most people. I know where they are now and what they're doing. I know how wonderful heaven is, and I'm homesick for it every single day. I know we all lived in heaven before we were born on earth, and we were all adult spirits in the heavenly realm. We chose to come to earth as mortals. Heaven is more wonderful than you can possibly imagine. I do not fear death, but I look forward to it.
Says the woman who couldn't face the death penalty. Says the woman that didn't love anyone on this earth while she was here, except for she did care for one, and that would be Colby Ryan, the surviving child of Lori Vallow. Through my research, I have found that Lori Vallow did have love for one person, and that would be Colby Ryan's father, but she couldn't control him, and he was difficult to run, so she left him, thinking that she would punish him for the rest of eternity and not allow him to see Colby Ryan. But as you know, out of all the people that we've talked to in this story, there's only one person you cannot speak to, and that is Colby Ryan's father. He knows a lot more than he wants to share, and he knows that this woman is so bad that he doesn't want to open the door. That should say it a lot. And based off of my research, and I'm speculating, I think giving up his son was worth it for him. Did not have nothing to do with Lori Cox ever again. Sometimes I wish William would at least write, something to a reporter or someone just to explain what he went through. Not everything, but to give us a glimpse of who that dark side is from her younger years. Lori preaches and continues to preach to this courtroom as if she is their friend, and how she portrays that she loved every victim that she's sitting in court for that's no longer here on this earth, including Tammy Daybell. She played the mistress between Tammy and Chad. Do you really think she loved Tammy?
I did not want to return to my body when I was out of it. Even though my son Colby, who I adored more than anything, was only 6 years old at the time, and I was about to give birth to this new baby girl that I wanted so badly.
Liar.
I was a young mother, and you would think I wouldn't want to leave my children, but as I stood in heaven, I did not want to go back. I thought they would be fine.
That's one of the biggest clues right there. She believes that it was okay to leave her children. They would be fine. Who cares if they were to cry for me day and night? That's the same way she is today. We all know that this story isn't true, so this is obviously her feelings in the future.
Without me, because I was peaceful and I was happy and I was home. But then I was told by Jesus that I needed to go back and complete things that I had covenanted or promised to do before I was born.
What she's going to explain next is absolute 100% truth, just manipulated a bit. We know that she lives in the temple. She adores the temple, and she sees the temple as a heavenly castle. In my research, I believe that her goal was to build one that belonged to her only. But let's subtract that, and let's just listen to what she has to say here and what her heart is pouring out. And you can tell what she's talking about here is important to her.
This caused me a lot of distress because I knew heaven was my real home, and I only wanted to be there. I was free from pain, emotional and physical. But then I was shown how I would help my children and others in the future. So ultimately, I did agree to go back to my body.
So Lori is absolutely overcome by the temple, the celestial room, and the afterlife. She is struggling as a mortal here on earth, raising kids, being what is considered normal. She doesn't want to live that lifestyle, is what I can tell. She wants to be in a place where she's not having to deal with responsibility whatsoever.
Kylie has visited me. She is happy and very busy. Kylie is free now from all the pains of her life.
Let's put it into reality and the true terms. Lori Vallow is free from her pains and having to deal with Kylie. Remember, with Lori Vallow, it's opposite day. Whatever she's saying, flip it. Just flip it.
Kylie suffered horrible physical pain her whole life. I sat with Kylie in the hospital year after year after year while she screamed in pain when the morphine wasn't even enough to take away the pain of her pancreatitis. I sat there while she cried, and I held back her hair while she threw up.
She'll begin crying here, but these aren't tears for Kylie. These are tears of her pain and her emotion and how she felt having to deal with this. Meaning it was a pain. It was interrupting her free time, and how she is the only one that matters.
And I am the only person on this earth who knows how much Tylee suffered in her life. She had pain every single day. She never felt good. Her body did not work right. And I don't know if that was from complications from me dying while she was being born or something else, but she had a very difficult life. She was sexually abused by her own.
Lori is referring to her third husband, Joseph Ryan. She and Joseph Ryan's sister actually went to court claiming that he's abusive to Colby. But court records showed that there was no evidence proving that this was ever true. A witness that knew Alex Cox said that he asked her to say that she knew Joseph Ryan and to claim that she knew that he was seeking porn. Joseph Ryan was the one suffering and being stalked and attacked. Check out Life Beyond the Grave to learn more about the details in this story.
Biological father since she was 3 years old, and she was forced by family court to go visit him for 10 years against her will. I fought for her. In court, I protected her. I tried to protect her with my whole life. I tried to protect her. I worried about her every single day. Tylee had to get her GED because she couldn't go to school every day because she never felt good.
Well, Colby wasn't going to school. JJ at the end wasn't going to school. What's the excuse?
She felt sick. Nobody knows this because Tylee, like myself, tries to put on a good front, tries to be a happy person, tries to have hope in life, tries to know that she's here for a purpose and that she has an eternal purpose to be on this earth.
At least Lori admits that she's not the person she presents to the world. That what she's presenting to you is not who she really is.
But I never stopped worrying about her. One of the times that Tylee came to me as a spirit after she died, she commanded me, and she said to me, "Stop worrying, Mom. We are fine." She knows how I worry and how I miss her. The first time JJ visited me after he passed away, he put his arm around me and he said to me, "You didn't do anything wrong, Mom."
My first time listening to this part was very hard. The fact that she was using JJ's made-up spirit, putting his arm around her, telling her that she didn't do anything wrong, was very selfish, very manipulative, and very narcissistic. Most of all, it's probably one of the most cruel things I've ever heard in my entire life. How did the family sit there respectfully and listen to this bull crap? I'm not certain I could have done it, to be honest. If you were one of the victims' families there, would you be able to hold back and listen to this?
I love you, and I know you loved me every minute of my life. JJ, Joshua Jackson, was an adult spirit, and he was very, very tall when he put his arm around me. He is busy, he is engaged, he has jobs that he does there, and he is happy where he is. His life was short, but JJ's life was meaningful. JJ was a wonderful person and touched the lives of everyone, and I adored him every minute of his life.
For me, I knew there were no boundaries, and that you could expect something shocking from this woman every minute. There would be some type of loophole that she would struggle through. We know that she is trying to keep Kay Woodcock from coming to court, not because she was mourning with her, but to torture them. And now you see this woman sitting there crying, saying that she is part of their team, and what she's about to say about Chad Daybell's wife, who is now deceased, Tammy Daybell, is one of the most evil, conniving, deceitful acts and words that I've ever heard in my entire life. Again, anything, it tells you everything that comes out her mouth is a complete lie. Lori Vallow doesn't have one truth coming out her mouth this day.
My eternal friend, Tammy Daybell, has visited me on several occasions. She came to bring me peace and comfort, and I know that she is extremely busy helping her family, especially her children and grandchildren. And I have a great love for Tammy. My beautiful children, Tylee Ashlyn and Joshua Jackson, rest safely this day in the arms of Jesus.
I really can't tell who this is, but whoever does this coughing, they're about to blow their top, and you can tell. Again, I don't know how they sat through it. I just don't.
Jesus. My wonderful friend, Tammy Daybell, rests safely this day in the arms of Jesus. And I look forward to the day when we are all reunited, and I too will rest with them in the arms of my Jesus.
My final analysis was this, that Lori used this as an opportunity to praise herself and to torture the victims that she has tortured for so many years already. This was very cold and calculated, and I guarantee you it would have been worse, but she had the self-control to be careful how she worded what she wrote. This was an opportunity to rub in the fact that she had taken JJ away from the Woodcocks, that she had taken Tammy Daybell away from the Daybells and the Douglas family, and that their families are destroyed, and that her children are supporting basically her and Chad continuously. And that doesn't mean that they're supporting her by writing her anything, but by supporting Chad Daybell, who is still standing by Lori's side at this time. You can tell this because Lori doesn't have him on the BS list, which, if she had, would have thrown Chad Daybell under the bus and rolled over him until she couldn't no longer. And I really felt as if Tylee Ryan needed her Aunt Summer to represent her. And I don't know why she wasn't there. Tylee only had connections to certain people. She did not accept many people in her life. The main people that meant the most to her was her Cox family, especially Adam and Summer and Janice Cox. Sadly, none of them were there to speak for her. Instead, it was their sibling, Colby Ryan, and it seemed that he was struggling to get his statement out. This story has destroyed Colby Ryan. It sounded as if he just wanted to hurry, get it over with. He don't want to deal with it anymore. Lori Vallow had destroyed everything in his life. Took away his father, took away his siblings, and took away his own wife and children. She has destroyed so many lives for so many people, and not even on death row now. In fact, she's just getting life in prison, which I was surprised to see that. I mean, that you could tell that the judge had been listening closely. He done a great job staying neutral and trying to use the facts and the facts only. I'm pretty certain that Lori's statement was the icing on the cake. And at that point, having to listen to her for their families and then hear the judge say, you know, I could have done this for you, but you refused to work with us. I could have taken some off here. You've never had any criminal background whatsoever, which is basically, it's not on paper, but we know who Lori Vallow is. We know what she did to Joseph Ryan. He was able to say, no more, Lori Vallow. It's now time for the victims' families to rest and move forward. In a nutshell, it was made clear that Lori Vallow would not be able to be rehabilitated. She was a threat to society, communities, and everyone around her. She was a danger to those she loved the most. No one can be more dangerous than that. And as the judge read her sentence that she would have life in prison, we know that the people who will be surrounding her in prison will have to live this horrible, horrific life that she will manipulate and create surrounding her even there. So I'm going to play a little bit of what Boyce shared, and it starts off with him listening to her statement. Pretty much was the nail on the coffin. I want to say that I'm very happy that the family were able to see some sort of justice. It's never 100%, but at least she won't see the light of day. I'm going to play the rest of this video and let this video close us out. Sending my love out to the families involved with this case, and I will talk more about this as the next few days approach.
Where there were commitment proceedings, I've reviewed those reports and have that personal information from having gone through the determinations of whether or not you were competent or fit to stand trial. The most current diagnosis the court has is from Dr. Watson from February of this year, states you suffer from, and I'll quote, delusional disorder, mixed type with bizarre content and hyper-religiosity, continuous and unspecified personality disorder with histrionic and narcissistic features. So obviously a very complex diagnosis that's been made here. Whether or not that can or how it would be treated, I think by all accounts is unknown at this time. I've reviewed your personal history, including statements from your own immediate family members, and it's clear that something radically changed in you that led you to where you are today.
No, it didn't.
In a statement made in the pre-sentence investigation report, your mother stated it perhaps best and said that you are not now, quote, the person she knew, because I wanted to keep objective through the proceedings and remain impartial. You were afforded all of your due process in this case, and ultimately, after presentation of the evidence, a jury did find you guilty. Having considered all of the evidence that I saw at trial along with the jurors, it's been a difficult task for me to narrow down and articulate all of the aggravating factors because really there are so many here. Murder is the most serious offense. And the most unimaginable type of murder is to have a mother murdering her own children, and that's exactly what you did. You were involved in and guilty of conspiring to murder another group of children's mother, Tammy Daybell, who had children of her own. And despite the jury convicting you with overwhelming evidence, you still sit here before the court today and said you didn't do it. You came here to East Idaho, where I've spent my life, and moved here from another place already with plans in progress to make your children disappear. The evidence bore that out at trial. You removed your children from their home in Arizona, alienated them from friends and family, got rid of JJ's service dog. You moved to Rexburg, a community where you could find 1,000 random families to take your children, and you brought them here to murder them. You had so many other options. You could have gotten divorced. You could have found someone to take care of those kids. But as the state was able to prove at trial, you chose the most evil and destructive path possible. You killed those children according to the state's theory, and I believe it, to remove them as obstacles and to profit financially. You justified all of this by going down a bizarre religious rabbit hole, and clearly you are still down there. While you were enjoying your new life in Hawaii, countless law enforcement officers, family members, and volunteers were searching for your children. And I don't think to this day you have any remorse for the effort and heartache you caused for others who looked for your children when you knew where they were and knew they were dead. They were found dead, burned, mutilated, and dismembered, and buried like animals. After you knew they were dead, you collected public-funded assistance payments meant for them, and that was blood money you kept for yourself. And that's the grand theft charge you've been convicted of. Your sister, your son talked to you, begged with you while you were in the jail during phone calls I heard at trial, and those were very sad and difficult calls to hear. And you didn't provide any assistance or comfort to them. During the trial, when the evidence came out about how these children were found and the state they were in, you wanted to be excused and not have to watch the evidence, and were fine to let all the other people in the courtroom, including the jurors, have to bear through that. However, I ruled that you did have to sit and watch and see the result of your heinous crimes. I did note at certain times during the trial, such as when there were videos and pictures shown of you in Hawaii at this time frame when JJ and Tylee were lying in shallow graves, the disgust on the faces of those jurors was evident, and shocking revelations about what happened here just kept coming through the trial. The crime scene was a horrific thing to have to review, and there's images that I will never get out of my mind, and I'm just looking at the pictures. Law enforcement officers who had to deal with the aftermath of what you did, I'm sure were traumatized, and I know it was traumatic as well for the jurors who had to sit through and see the photographs of these dead and mutilated and buried children. For those people who loved and cared about JJ and Tylee and Tammy Daybell, to have to see those photographs of them through trial of their dead and desecrated bodies must have been devastating. Tammy Daybell was murdered as a result of your conspiracy. She was, by all accounts, a healthy, happy mother and wife through a lot of her life, and you were out shopping for wedding rings to marry her husband while she was still alive. You were planning a wedding to her husband while she was still alive. You haven't shown any remorse for any of those actions, and it is a loss for everyone that you took them away from this world. And it is the most shocking thing, really, I can imagine, is that a mother killed her own children, and you simply have no remorse for it. Even sitting here today, there's no remorse for what you did. After all of this evidence through trial, you haven't shown any remorse. I'm not here to judge that, but I don't believe that any God in any religion would want to have this happen, what happened here. And your crimes are heinous and egregious, and that alone can constitute a major aggravating factor that requires me to impose a serious length of incarceration. This time then, I am prepared to pronounce sentence. Mr. Thomas, Mr. Archibald, and the defendant, would you please rise for the pronouncement of sentence? Based on all the relevant circumstances, including the evidence and recommendations presented in court today, it's the judgment of this court. Ms. Vallow, you'll be sentenced as follows. I'll first note I'm going to take up the counts out of order as I want to address the substantive murder sentences first. So on count 2, the charge you were convicted of, the first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan, you are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence of fixed determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole.
Thank God.
On count 4, the charge of the first-degree murder of Joshua Jackson Vallow, You are sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed, determinate life imprisonment sentence with no possibility of parole. I'll next address the 3 conspiracy counts you've been convicted of. Note under Idaho Code 18-1701, the punishment for those crimes is the same as the underlying offenses you combined to commit. The offenses you combined to commit was first-degree murder, so those may be punishable also by imprisonment for life. I look at what the appropriate sentences should be for the conspiracy charges. At first, I wondered if they should be as long of a term or serious as the substantive murder charges. However, what I've concluded is that these conspiracy convictions merit the same grave punishment for several reasons. First, the conspiracies in which you engaged in have had far-reaching impacts on many people besides the deceased victims. And with what the court's heard, I am convinced that the conspiracy charges also merit the same serious sentence. So on count 1, the conspiracy to commit first-degree murder of Tylee Ryan and grand theft by deception, sentenced to the custody of the State Board of Corrections to serve the maximum allowed sentence, a fixed, determinate term of life imprisonment with no possibility of parole.